Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. We've had a great week. We've been working on Christmas lights and Christmas trees and all kinds of stuff. And winter arrived yesterday.
Sideways?
Yeah, it was blowing so hard yesterday, and we were out putting Christmas lights.
Yeah, like idiots.
Around the Hartley, and I mean, just bundled up. I don't know how you did it without earmuffs. Like I had, my hair first over my ears, and then I had a hat on, and then I had a hood on over that, and I was just like...
Well, you know, we've spent so much at our local John Deere dealer, Campbell Tractor, that they gave me a winter coat.
Is that what you were wearing?
But that coat, like it somehow, a lot of hoods can be really weird. They can go too far down.
Mine does, yeah.
Or they can be too wide or too small. But this one's really nice, and I'm not like promoting it or anything, but I think it's just like it's a
Carhartt
knockoff,
right?
maybe.
Yeah.
It may be Carhartt. Or it might be a knockoff. I'm not sure. But it's nice. And it covers my ears.
Kept you warm. But it was frigid. Today it's 42 is the high. It's sunny. I just got in from the greenhouse. In fact, I probably should have washed up before doing this video. But I've been working out in there and in here. And it's just been beautiful today. I still have so many bulbs to plant. So many bulbs. I'm like, oh. And I don't even know if I'm going to film the rest of the bulbs. I feel like I've done so many bulb videos that we might just plant the tulips and tell you we did it and not actually film it.
Yeah.
I'll be able to go a lot faster too.
It's tough. It's one of those things that it's hard to hire out planting bulbs because you're a little particular on where you want them.
Kind of.
Because you like them, and I agree that they look best if you plant them kind of in like
little groupings,
like group of 5 or 9 or something, as opposed to
a big clump.
Like if it was me, I would just be like doot 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 doot, and you'd just be all in a row.
Soldiers in a row.
Yeah.
Well, either way, it's been a really, really nice week. So we'll just jump into the videos. First one was fall flower bed cleanup. I went through the flower bed right behind the chicken coop because it was in desperate need, especially when you get that area done right behind the Hartley and it's all like fresh and formal. And then you look over at the chicken coop and it was like, what are those plants? What is going on back there? They just had gotten out of control. And I mean, I went as far as to cut down that weeping cherry tree. Guys, I just didn't like it there. I've never really been a fan of the cherry trees that come up on a trunk and then just boop like an umbrella. Yeah. It looks so unnatural to me, but somebody sent that. We were sent that tree a couple of years ago. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to put it somewhere. You never know. I mean, my taste has evolved on a lot of things. I used to hate alliums. Now I love alliums. So I tried it. I didn't love it there, and I like it so much more having it gone. And Ken, who edits our videos, also does woodworking. And so I cut the trunk right below the umbrella and right above soil surface. Nice, long, straight piece of cherry. So he'll create something pretty, I'm sure, with that. And then I pulled out borage and just cut back things, even though I kind of talked about like the difference between cleaning up in the fall versus the spring. I know, especially like on Facebook, you see so many things. Do not clean out your flower beds until it's 50 degrees. And you just got to do it when it works for your schedule. And I know that there are pros and cons to either way. I just went through some of those reasons in the video. Marcy said, how do you dispose of the aphid-infested plants? Haul to the dump, make a burn pile? Well, in this case, so the borage was just covered in aphids. We put it in the pile that we burn, which, are we going to burn that here?
Now that we own that land, we will probably burn twice a year. We'll probably burn like in the spring, like early spring, and then once in the fall, because we can't burn in the summer because there's a burn ban.
Right.
It gets too hot and too dry. But if you do it, late enough, like now, it's pretty wet,
And it's an isolated pile, like it's out in the sea of nothing. So I'm not worried about anything spreading. Now, I don't put any spider mite infested foliage over there. It all gets bagged and put in the dumpster. It gets thrown away. Like we do not want to try to compost it or even harbor it there, like have it there in a pile, even though it's not surrounding any other plants really. Aphids, they're probably all dead now because of the intense freeze we've had. Aphids aren't as big of an issue, so I'm not worried about it, even if they sit there all winter long.
Do aphids winter over in eggs?
Yeah, I suppose they could if they're protected enough. But aphids are like the least of my worries. Not worried about them at all. Monica said, do you ever wonder if your kitties carry aphids from one plant to another on their fur? Is that even a thing? I'm sure it's a thing. Things get spread all the time on fur. Pollen.
Or me. I've been in the house and looked down on my arm and there's an aphid
on
crawling
you.
on my arm.
Yeah. Well, it's probably like in my hair. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like when I'm all up in, doing flower bed cleanup like that, I'm sure I'm covered with stuff. But I don't think about it.
Well, there's nothing you can do to stop it. So
No.
what are you going to do,
Right. That's true. Anthony said, have you considered planting vinca annuals in the quadrant where the impatiens were? They can handle the hot afternoon sun and don't need much watering. I'm in zone 7A and mine did so well this season. I think that would be really pretty. I don't know that you would love it, Aaron. It's a lot of green. You like color, which I do too, you know, in moderation. But in that space, it looks really nice to have more color than foliage, I think. But vincas are really pretty. It's something that I should probably think about somewhere. Lael said, anyone know what's growing on the arch next to a chicken coop? Very pretty. It's a wisteria. Amethyst falls. Is that a variety? I don't know. I planted it
years ago.
Yeah, when the tool shed was still there, the little root cellar was still there. So the chicken run where the root cellar roof kind of came up, that was still there. It's got a pretty decent sized trunk now. But now it's kind of nice where it's at because it does provide some kind of coziness to that area. When we had the maple tree there, the great big one, it was starting to climb up into the maple tree. And I thought, oh, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to take that vine out. But now it's fine at this point. Nancy said, I moved to a new home last year and inherited 2 huge hibiscus plants. When and how much should I cut them back? Can they be propagated? My daughter and I visit the store in October. We live in Boise and met your mom and thoroughly enjoyed looking through the store. Oh, thanks for visiting. So when you say hibiscus plants, there are different types. So here in our area, you would either find Rosa Sharon hibiscus, which is probably what you're talking about, because if they're huge, it's probably Rosa Sharon. There are like the Rose Mallow type hibiscus that are the dinner plate type, and they're a perennial, so you cut those back to the ground every single year. In terms of your Rosa Sharon, big ones, you can cut them back in the early spring. I think they bloom on new wood. So if you get after them early in the season, they'll create new wood and bloom off of that new wood the same season. So that is your pruning window, late winter, early spring. Nikki said, genuine question, why do you not cut plants off at soil level and leave the roots to rot away in the soil, adding in nutrients naturally? I do this, and by the time spring comes around, the roots are gone, so never cause an issue. I suppose you could do that. Like I pulled out, oh, that's the other thing. In that video, I did pull out the Surefire Rose Begonias, which I highly recommend planting that annual. It's amazing. It needs to be annual of the year.
Yeah.
Like Laura and Aaron's annual of the year for 2023 is the Surefire Rose Begonia.
In our garden, that one
Yeah.
would win the award for best annual.
Ever. It can take sun and shade and just looks good so much of the season.
We should do that. We should do like flower awards or something
we
every
should.
year and go through and like pick what was the best performing shrub, perennial, annual.
The funny part is like there's different plant companies and each one of them has their own like annual of the year, shrub of the year. So why can't we have ours?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be super fun.
But you don't have to spray them. You don't have to spray them with BT. They're not bugged by spider mites. They're not bugged by aphids. They're not bugged by anything. And they don't need a tremendous amount of food.
In fact, I've been told that they don't want, like, I was talking to somebody at Proven Winners and they said, be careful, like maybe give the begonias like half strength fertilizer or none at all.
It's an awesome plant. Mm-hmm. Good color too. They are coming out with a Surefire White.
Oh yeah.
Next year.
Right.
You better believe that one's going to be in my garden.
Doesn't that have like kind of a chocolate?
No, I don't think so. That's the double up white.
Yeah, I think it's something different.
So yeah, I suppose that we could cut those off at soil level and just leave the roots. It wouldn't be a big deal.
Was it difficult to pull them up?
No.
You weren't like struggling?
No. Katya said, you've said several times you just didn't like the weeping cherry. I'm just wondering how come. You know when there's just something you just don't like that much? I don't know what your opinion is on that tree, Aaron. What are your thoughts?
What is it, like blue dune grass or whatever that I don't like?
Maybe that was it. Yeah, in our last garden, you didn't like that plant.
There's just some things that you look at and you're like, I could do without that.
Oh, blue fescue. You don't like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the blue fescue.
So I get it. Like, I don't mind a weeping cherry. I think that they're fine. But I get it when you just look at something, you're like, I don't like that.
Yeah. The thing about it is that, like, it doesn't look natural because I don't know that it is. I think it's grafted. That one was. And it blooms in the spring, but it wasn't like a prolific bloomer. And the blooms are really light colored, so you don't really, they don't stand out. They don't last for very long. And then the rest of the season, they're just shooting out these random arms. And they're hard, like just high enough to where it's difficult for me to reach. So I need to get a ladder. It's just one of those plants that when I look at it, it just looks like a pain. Like, you are a pain to me, and I don't want you in my garden anymore. Next video was planting alliums and tulips in the garden. Oh, that was behind the Hartley.
No, I think that was in Versailles.
That was in Versailles. That's true.
Which, honestly...
It shouldn't be called that.
It's the dumbest name. We just should call it either like the formal garden or the...
I would call it the balcony garden because that's where the balcony is.
Yeah, the circle garden.
I said balconia. What is my problem? Balcony garden. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to... you say the South Garden. For a while, it was the new land.
Yes.
And you've officially transitioned to the South Garden.
Yes.
We just need to transition out.
And then we have
garden.
the inner and outer loop in the South Garden, and then the dumpster garden.
Well, in fact, when you sent me the title for that video, I actually deleted the word Versailles.
You know, it was named that by the previous owners because of the formality, and it was just like grass. And they had pots and stuff with topiaries in there, so I think it looked a little bit more like it made sense. Yeah. And we just said it because that's what they called it.
I think to call it a Versailles garden, you would need those like square Versailles pots.
Yeah.
Or planters. They're not pots. They're planters. They're like the wooden.
Yeah.
Are they wooden?
They are wood, and I think one of the sides opens up, and then a pot comes out with the plant.
Oh, gotcha.
And then they can close it back up.
Yeah, and they're all like green, right?
I think so.
Or like maybe you wouldn't call them green.
Yeah, like a minty, sagey green.
Yeah.
They're pretty.
Yeah, I don't like them in green.
Oh,
I do like them in black.
Do you?
Yeah.
You're more like colonial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was up in that garden. I planted some alliums, 57, I think, around that urn. It's going to be good in the spring. And then a whole bunch of tulips. Like, I can't remember how many, 700-ish, around those 4 cone boxwoods around the Persephone statue. I meant to do more, and I just ran out of time. There's sometimes where I start a video where I think I've got way more of the day left than I actually do. And, you know, since having kids, I don't work through dinner and work into the night. You know, we have somebody, like my mom's here right now watching Benjamin. Samantha's napping. My mom's watching Benjamin while we're out here doing this. And Erin was watching the kids earlier today while I was doing a little bit of potting. But there's only so much time in the day, and there's really, at this point, I don't want to be working like that. I want to be with the kids. So, you know, every once in a while I look at the clock, I'm like, oh dang, I started that video and I've only got 2 hours and 1,000 tulips in the back of this gator. Am I going to be able to get it done? And that was one of those situations. So, but Chad was here that day. He was using the road grader to level out the new property out there, just so that we can put our high tunnels up. We've got a couple of high tunnels we want to pop up out there for plants and for storage of some like pelleted soil and stuff to keep them out of the weather.
Aside from that, I don't think we're going to do much of anything with that new land. We've been talking
lots
about
of different possibilities, but not for at least next year.
Yeah, I think we're going to let it sit for one more year and just work on, because we have so many projects to work on that I feel like if here, you know, what we already have, it might be too much to try to expand.
I think so. Unless we'd need more staff.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to do that right now.
No. We've got such a good thing going right now.
Yeah, right.
So I think we might seed it with a dryland or a rangeland, rather, pasture mix. My dad was explaining to me what was it all in there, hard fescue and sheep fescue, and there's some type of crested wheatgrass in there. Anyway, we might seed it with that and just let the natural moisture bring that up. We'll see. Simply Bloom said, do you ever get bruises from the drill when you rested on your leg? I only planted 100 bulbs on the other day, and I have a massive bruise on my knee from the drill. Also, what kind of drill do you recommend? I do not bruise. I just do not bruise. And sometimes I want to bruise because sometimes it hurts so bad and I want proof that I was actually wounded.
Sure.
And like by the looks of it, it would look like nothing ever happened. I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I just don't bruise. And I've got my stance down. I mean, you probably noticed, like I've got kind of like the
power stance.
Yeah, the power stance. And I do rest the drill on my leg. And it's been exponentially better since we have started using that cement mixer drill instead of the stud and joist drill, which is so much heavier and it's so much more cumbersome. Like it was borderline, I couldn't handle it. And I can handle I could handle a lot more 10 years ago, but I can still handle quite a lot. But that one was borderline. The cement mixer, way easier, way lighter. I had my dad try it. So I took
what did
out,
he think?
he just said, I'm going to give away the stud and joist drill.
Yeah.
I'm going to get one of these. Like, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
It really is. Melissa said, what is a high tunnel? It's like a plastic greenhouse, not heated. Basically, it's just like a layer of protection from the outside world.
Yeah.
It's what our plastic greenhouse was until now it's converted into a heated.
Well, so many of those terms are interchangeable. Like a high tunnel is like, I think can be interchanged with a caterpillar tunnel, which is like a long round, what's that called? A Quonset shape. Well, that's not true. You can get them in the Gothic shape too, and it's still a high tunnel. So I think a lot of those terms are just like people call it a greenhouse, even if it's not heated, they'll still call it a greenhouse.
What about cold frame? Do you think of smaller things as cold frames, or would you think
I think
that
cold frame is like officially saying a non-heated space?
But what does a high tunnel say?
A high tunnel
Not
just
heated.
means that it's like the shape is like a plastic tunnel that could be either a Quonset shape, which is the round, or is that right? Am I saying it's Quonset is
Like a dome?
Yeah, I think that's the term though. And then Gothic is like what we have for our greenhouse.
And that's what shape our high tunnels are.
Yeah. What's the shape of our Hartley? It's just like a, normal. There's no shape to it. It's not round and it's not Gothic.
Yeah.
Just regular.
Regular. I don't know. Awesome. It's awesome. Olive said, just curious, are you forcing any bulbs for a fun holiday display this year? I would have had I remembered to get them into cold treatment, but I did not. So we will have amaryllis, which I just potted this morning, and that's probably it. I'm good with that. DH said, are tulip bulbs a one and done? Will they come up every year? There are some, like the Darwin tulips, are much more reliable at coming up year after year. It depends on your zone, your climate, and that sort of thing. But a lot of them just don't naturalize as well as daffodils do. So they'll come up, but maybe you plant let's say you plant 100 tulips. The next year you might have 80 tulips, and then the next year after that you'll have 60 tulips, and that sort of thing. Less if you have squirrel activity. So there are some factors that play into it, but I believe that Darwin's are the most reliable. Jamie said, I'd like to invest in some Globemaster bulbs. Do they come back reliably? Yes, those do come back reliably, for sure. I've never had them not, and they are resistant to deer and rodents and all that kind of thing.
Do they spread or naturalize or anything?
I think they do.
Do they?
Yeah. Because that's what you're getting. When you buy a allium, you'll see, it looks like a clove almost, and there's a flat side where, yeah. Anyway. Alan said, please don't take offense, but it's time to rethink Versailles as the Hartley is the new Versailles in terms of its importance to your property. The boxwoods aren't symmetrical, I know. The brick is a little wonky. Yes, it is. Everything seems to be on the table. It sure is. We have rethought all kinds of different things. I don't know. We're just kind of letting things evolve how they do. And like we discussed earlier, the only reason why we refer to it as Versailles is because that's what the previous owners did. So maybe we call it, what were you going to call it? Now that we don't...
balcony garden.
The balcony garden. That would make the most sense to me because that's the only place we have a balcony.
Right. So here are a couple of reasons why we haven't tackled it. One, the locust trees. They're off center, but anything that you're going to do in that space that's symmetrical, the locust trees are in the wrong spot. But they're fine, and we don't really want to
get rid of the shade.
Take out perfectly good locust trees. So that's a problem. Two, our what are those called? The septic lines are
the drain field.
The drain field is in Versailles. And so that limits what you can do because the drain field is there, and we live in the county, but we're close enough to where if we ever need to put in a new drain field or mess with our septic, the city will require us to annex into the city, which means that, our taxes will go up and all that kind of stuff. So, and they may even require us to pay for curbs and gutters. I think it's within the city's purview to actually force us to put that road in at that point if they wanted to. I've talked to the city manager and he said that they wouldn't do that to us because it'd be kind of a mean thing to do because it wouldn't benefit the city.
No.
It would just be a mean thing to do to us just to force us to do it. because it would be a road to nowhere. We would just be paying for that, and they could make us pay for it down the road if it made sense, if it benefited the city. It's like, okay, at this point, now you're going to have to pay for it. So anyway, for all those reasons, that's why we haven't messed with Versailles a whole lot.
Yeah.
The balcony garden.
The balcony garden. Okay, we're going to start calling it that, everybody. So when we refer to the balcony garden, that is formerly known as Versailles. Kelly said, do you ever have any of your statues or urns blow over from strong winds? I would love to put those on my property, but we get a lot of hurricanes. Well, hurricane winds, I would probably be worried. I mean, I'm surprised with the amount of wind. I mean, we've had 60, 70 mile an hour gusts. And that,
even with hurricane winds, man, they're pretty heavy, and there's not a lot to grab the wind.
Well, except for like on those tall fountains, the tiered ones that have the very top finial piece.
Yeah.
Those aren't that heavy, and they're not like adhered.
Yeah.
They're not
like,
fixed
right.
to the rest of the fountain.
They're
and they
still heavy enough though that, I mean, unless like barring like a tornado, even hurricane winds.
I don't know.
If it's a, you know,
I'd go tip that thing over like myself so that there was no damage.
Well, the thing is, you know, hurricanes don't just like pop up out of nowhere. Usually you kind of know that like a big storm is coming. You may not know how big of a storm, but you know something's coming. So you could like tie it down, you know, you could put like some stakes in the ground and like tie your concrete.
Yeah.
To multiple locations.
Yeah, but we've never had like statues like Persephone or the Hebe statue or anything like that, or containers
never even been a
on pedestals.
That
no,
they could fall over.
It hasn't. We did cover the great big fountain up front, so we weren't going to over the winter because we typically don't cover our concrete because we like to look at it, because you know, if we cover it for the winter months, 4 or 5 months, we don't get to see it, and it's just this tarped thing in your yard, which is kind of a bummer. But Paul drained out all the water and cleaned it out. And then he was looking at it the next day and he just said, I think there's just too much water settling in this fountain. I don't feel comfortable with it. Can I cover it? I said, yes, please cover it. So there's a triangular shaped dome tarp out in our front flower bed.
Don't your parents have like a heater that they put in the fountain at Andrews?
Yeah, they've done that.
Could we do that?
Yeah.
I wonder what it probably isn't that expensive, because it's one of those like stock tank water heaters, like for cows and stuff and horses.
Next video was planting a lawn in the greenhouse for the kids, and that was a super fun project. It was a really crummy day out. It was just pouring rain. It was beautiful, but it makes it a little bit hard to be out working in the garden, even planting bulbs, because it just gets so muddy. So Aaron and I decided to run down to Home Depot. We bought, I think they were 2x6s, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, just 4 of them. We screwed them together, lined them with landscape fabric, filled them with soil, and planted grass seed in the greenhouse, because we do keep that fairly warm in the wintertime. And like today, it's going to have no problem staying warm. I don't even know what the temperature is in there right now. Let me see if I can look it up. I've got an app on my phone that says what temperature it is in the greenhouse at the moment. Right now it says it's 71 in there, which is nice. That's a nice temperature. We'll have grass come up here pretty quick. It's only been planted for a few days, so I haven't seen any green yet, but I would love to turn that space into kind of just a retreat. It already is, whether or not there's a lawn or a pool. I'm thinking about putting a little kiddie pool in there. We've got a small one. And just creating a spot for the kids to go in and play where it's protected and warm. Anyway, At Home with Elisa said, hi Laura, have you looked at Casey Lawrence's YouTube channel? She uses her greenhouse as outdoor living in the winter and it looks stunning. Yes, so we featured her greenhouse in one of our greenhouse videos last winter. It was called, I think, Taking a Look at Your Greenhouses. We had a bunch of you guys submit pictures and details about your greenhouses, and there were so many beautiful ones. Oh my goodness. And hers was one of them, and it did show her kids in a swimming pool. I don't think she's got grass in hers, but she's got a swimming pool, a bunch of tropical plants, and it just looks like this retreat, because you can see right outside the door and there's snow outside. Nice. That's exactly what I want for this greenhouse here. I don't know, depending on how things go, I don't know that we're going to heat ours.
Well, you could heat it that warm just if you're going to go swimming.
Just for that moment, because I don't normally keep it really, really warm, but the sun can heat it upwards of, some days it was getting 90 degrees, like late in the winter last year. And we were getting heat alerts for that space. So we'll see. But yeah, it was really fun to take a look at her space. We actually have a greenhouse in our area. They don't do it anymore, but it was in Boise, and they did an indoor lawn for families to come and do picnics and things during the winter months. And that's kind of what got me thinking about grass. Simply Bloom said, "Oh, that will be so fun. And just out of curiosity, how will you mow it?" Yeah, that's the question that Benjamin asked me. You and Benjamin. Benjamin is very similar to you.
Yeah.
You could tell for a second he was just thinking about it. Like
He's
a
problem
grass.
solving.
Yeah, like, what are you, how are you gonna mow it?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Oh, we could probably just get a weed whacker in there. And,
Yeah, we
I don't know if that'll
could.
make a big mess,
I
or if
don't
you'd want to
know.
like try to bag it, or it's too small to get a lawnmower in there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Our personalities are so different that way too. Because usually I just think of something I want to do and I just haul into it, and then I problem solve as I need to.
Yeah.
But I don't let any of those things into my brain because for me it squashes the project.
Right.
And I'm like, no. I want to feel inspired and motivated, and I'll
Right.
fix the problems as they come up. It's no big deal. And I do usually. And that's how I handled everything down at the garden center.
Right.
I just would start a project and I would figure things out until I got the result I wanted.
My personality is to solve all the problems ahead of time, and that's just the way it is. I read a book, the Five Voices, and my predominant voice is the guardian, which is basically like a protector in a way of like making sure the thing actually works. So like you need those types of people in your life or in your business, because like that's the type of person that's going to make sure you don't get sued. Like, did
True.
you think about this? Like maybe we need insurance for X. Like that's what I think. Your personality doesn't think about that. And so, but you could, I need you and you need me. Cause like, if you didn't have somebody who thought to like,
There's
buy
a lot of
insurance
things.
or,
There's a lot of things that you've curbed me in saying, even that you're like, I probably
yeah.
wouldn't word it like that. And
Yeah.
I just don't think about it,
Yeah.
and don't think about the
but
repercussions.
I want it to succeed. I want whatever project you're working on. And so I'm thinking, well, if there's these 3 problems I can think of that might make it fail. So if I can ahead of time solve these 3 issues,
and many a fight
yeah,
has begun
but you
with
think,
that.
But I'll bring up those 3 issues like, okay, well, we need to do this, this, and this. And then you're just like, all you're doing is thinking about ways it could go wrong. I'm like, well, yeah, if you fix those things, it can't go wrong. Just a different way of looking at life.
So there's
I
sometimes
guess.
I'm like, you know what? I'm not listening to you. La 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 la. I'm gonna go do my project, and then you can think about the problems if you want to, but I want to feel excited about this.
Yeah.
But you can't feel excited unless you feel like it's going to be worth it.
Right. Which, is bad on my part, because there's a lot of things that I won't try unless I feel like I know I can succeed. So there's a lot of things I miss out on because I just never even tried it, because I was like, I might not be able to solve some of these issues. But,
This
you
time,
just
this
kinda,
time, this time.
Yeah, that's totally your personality. You'll just wail into things.
Yeah. Okay. Susie said, will you be able to replant this as sod in the landscape next spring, do you think? Probably not. It's going to probably be pretty rough, I'm guessing.
Depending, though, because we're going to have a circle hole where Nathan comes and pulls out the locust.
That's true.
So it would be kind of nice if we can use it. I would
Yeah.
like to put a circle piece of it out there.
I hadn't even thought
on the
about
lawn.
that. I hadn't even thought about that. But see, this project's going to solve one of your problems.
Boom.
Yeah, out in the lawn. So it just depends on how it goes, how the grass reacts to being in there, and how good we take care of it. All those things. Blake said, on average, what would you say heating a greenhouse is expensive? I think it depends on the size of greenhouse you have, how you have it set up, where you have it located.
Do you know what temperature you keep it set at right now?
I don't let it go below 50 right now, which is a little cool for the tomatoes. That's why I think I need to crank it up a little bit. Like maybe not let it go below 65.
I seem to remember last year, like in the coldest, and we were keeping it probably warmer than normal. I want to say it was somewhere in like the $100 to $200 range for the month. And that was like the worst. That was the worst month that we had.
We only heat it for like 3 months, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that long, because it maintains pretty well.
Yeah.
When it's a little less
I
chilly.
want to say that's what, because we're using natural gas as the heat source. And it's always tough to try to know like, well, how much is that affecting it versus just your regular stuff? So you kind of like are judging by, it's hard. It's hard to know exactly because it's not on a separate meter.
Right. That would be nice to know, though. Claire said, how fun it would be to have a picnic with the kids out here in the middle of winter. Magical. I think it will be. And I did string some patio lights up. I bought a 100 light strand on Amazon, just wanting to test it out. And that thing like cruised the whole distance. Like we have 3 I don't know what they're called. The purlin, is it not purlins? They're the brace.
Oh yeah,
Pieces.
cross beams, I think.
Cross beams. I kind of zigzagged and went all the way to the back, and then I went across the back and then zigzagged all the way back up the front. And that thing, so there's only one strand of lights up, and they're so pretty. It looks so cozy from the house at night to see it all kind of lit up in there. Kimberly said, does Russell sleep in your house overnight? No, he sleeps now in the greenhouse. I think both of them do. I have some bales of straw in there for a project I'm going to be working on here. I'll share it with you.
They don't sleep a whole lot at night. I get alerts from our cameras, and they're all over the place.
Including a bunch of foxes. And the other night, this is the cutest thing. Aaron showed me this video of, you could see 3 sets of eyes, like running through the pasture, and they came under the fence into our garden, and it was 2 raccoons, like big ones, and a fox, like playing together, running around.
Just chilling.
Yeah. Lynn said, I love that Benjamin's first thought was about mowing the grass, like father, like son. Will Aaron let Benjamin mow the lawn by himself someday? Or is that a task that Aaron enjoys doing too much to give up?
I'll totally let him do it. As long as he does a good job, but I don't know if...
Oh, it's going to be a while. It takes practice to keep things straight, and that's a big machine. I wouldn't do a good job. That's why I don't get on it.
He'll have to get way taller to use the mower. So...
I think he's going to be pretty good, though. I have him working with scissors quite a lot. It's like scissor activities, just to, learn how to use scissors properly. And then also like control with scissors. He can cut out some pretty intricate stuff, like really impressive. I feel like. I have nothing to judge it against, but I think he's pretty impressive. Next video was helping my parents plant bulbs in their garden. They had roughly just over 1,000 bulbs to plant down in their orchard space. It's now going to become a new type of garden. It used to be an orchard. I'll probably always call it an orchard, but they're treating that space a lot like we are the South Garden. Willy-nilly planting. They want kind of a natural walkway through there. I think they're just going to keep it dirt, like a dirt walkway. Trees, shrubs, stuff like that. Grasses. They were talking about some grasses to plant down in there, which surprised me because my mom doesn't love ornamental grasses. But I think in this setting, she will like it.
I can't imagine grasses in there.
Like a naturalistic kind of like.
I thought they were going to plant some more trees down there.
They are.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, they're waiting to see how our orchard grass looks before they decide what kind of grass they want to put in there. First comment, I live in Mississippi and was wondering where you purchase your evergreen plants. I'm pretty sure that I live in Zone 7. We get a lot of our evergreens through my parents' garden center. We've bought several large ones through Malad Tree Farm this year. Big ones. A lot of them. A Jaker, yeah. A lot of them come from Schmidt, J.F. Schmidt Company, and Isley Nursery. Some come from Bountiful Farms is the company. All 3 of those are in Oregon. So, but a lot of them, like Isley, I know ships and Schmidt ships nationwide. So I just check with your local garden center. Chelsea said, I'd love to learn more about your dad's gardening style. Is he more vegetable than flowers, or a tree guy like Aaron, or all about the flowers like you and your mom? Is he a planner, or is he more freestyle? Definitely more freestyle, but he's interested in all of it. And he has a lot of knowledge. A lot of knowledge. It's funny, though, because they are very... I told him when we were planting bulbs, I'm like, if you guys did videos, the comment section.
Oh, geez.
Oh, my gosh. Like, there would be a slew of people telling you what you did wrong because they don't do a lot of proper things. They just do it how it works for them. And that's how I grew up. So it was a little bit of a learning curve for me because I do feel like I went behind. They were just going to dig holes, throw the bulbs in, and come what may. And I thought, well, I want there to be the maximum amount of success with this project.
Yeah.
So I went through and turned all the bulbs so that the proper side was facing upright. A lot of them went in upside down, which I have experienced in my own garden when I had help one year planting tulips. A bunch of them got planted upside down. And this is years ago now. And it was bad. It was bad. And I was so discouraged about it because I really wanted it to be a beautiful show. And at that point I felt like I can't even show this because like most of the tulips just look horrible. But they just kind of roll, and it's refreshing to me.
People that are in like the industry or have garden centers or are growers, they have a different relationship with plants than a lot of other people because of a lot of people
accessibility.
They treat the plants like, precious things because it's expensive to get a hold of them. But people who are growing them, it's like, oh man, these are a dime a dozen because I'm, this is what I do.
Yeah. And sometimes my parents take home leftovers They're like leftover bulbs.
Yeah.
We'll take all of them home. I think they were planning on some of these, though, specifically.
Yeah.
But I know there have been years where my dad's been out there with a digging bar, and he would just chip up big slabs of ice, like soil that's just icy and frozen. And my mom would just throw bulbs under, and he'd just lay the slab back on top. Yeah. And, some of the bulbs would come up in the spring. But they were like, better get them in the ground than now. With a lot of leftovers, they pot them up and force them and have them there in the spring, which is better use of them probably. But anyway, it's those
fun. Kinds of things of trying that, of like,
it's good experience.
Like, we got about 50%, show on putting them underneath a slab of ice. So there you go. Now I know.
Right. Yeah. You learn a lot doing stuff like that. Amy said, does Samantha sleep through the night if she takes such long naps? She does. She's a pretty good sleeper now. We were wondering there for a while. I don't think she slept through a night until she was at least 10 months old. Yeah. And I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to do that. You get to that point because we were still were we doing 6-7 videos a week at that point? At what point did we decide to do just 5 videos on the main channel? Summer
that we decided to stop doing that.
Yeah, and take Saturdays off from posting. Oh, man, that's tough when you're sleep deprived like that. And it wasn't just once a night. It was several times in a night. But now she sleeps all the way through the night. She goes to bed and sleeps until, I don't know, but sometimes between 7 and 8. Yeah. Usually. Benjamin usually sleeps a little bit longer. And then some days, like she's napping now, like 3 hours, 3.5 hours sometimes. Yeah. Oh, the reason she asks is because Aaron and Samantha stayed at home, and while Benjamin and I went out to start the project, and then they came out and joined us later after her nap, because that's pretty important to us because she is affected by sleep, and if she doesn't sleep well, then we are all affected by sleep. So that is very important to us to make sure she's well rested and she's a happy girl. Tara said, where is Monica? Is she the one who tore out all the garden beds and fence? I know you said she had been helping her mom. No, they have a crew come in once a week and do projects. So they have, I think there's 2 or 3 guys that come in and either do clean out projects or whatever. And that one's a little too intense for Monica. I mean, it was big logs, like a log arbor and big fence material and railroad ties that are really, really heavy. So they came in and cleared that out. And they're going to be they're going to do kind of like we did, down to the Hartley, a little rock wall with a step down, but it'll match everything that's already there. So we did what they have here, and they're just carrying on with the style that's already out there.
Our slabs are a little bit more like,
ours are thicker.
They're thicker and they're more consistent in size, I want to say. Yeah. Your parents are a little bit more...
They're thin and like undulating walls a little bit. It's because a lot of them were gathered in the hills. They weren't like from a rock yard. Jennifer said, how do you know how far down to go with the auger? I had to measure the hole to make sure my depth was right. I avoided buying bulbs because I didn't want to measure on top of planting 400 bulbs. I think after you measure a few of them, though, I think you kind of get a rhythm. Some people will put a mark on their auger. Never thought about doing that. But you put paint a mark on your auger and let it go down that far, and then you're good to go. Anita said, I don't usually add a comment till video is over, but 2 questions. What, will the daffodils be different heights and different bloom times? Yes. What exactly does naturalizing mean, and when would you use plants that naturalize? Naturalizing means that they stick around and spread, like a perennial. And so you just use them in areas where you don't mind that happening. They don't spread like wildfire, though, so it's not like an invasive species that you're going to regret planting. It's a really lovely rate at which they naturalize. Okay, and then the last video for this week was more bulb planting. Planting daffodils, iris reticulata, and alliums in our garden here. I got, I think, 700 daffs planted, a few hundred, like 200 iris, lots of alliums. It was a big day. I think in the end it was 1,130 bulbs, I think is what I added up. And except for the iris, I dug individual holes for all of those. So 930 holes with the auger. My wrist right here was kind of sore that night.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. Cindy said, I want to make some arrangements of bulbs in some pots. I have daffodils, tulips, and alliums. How much of a soil depth do I need to put under them before placing them? I would make sure there was 4 or so inches. You could go deeper than that if you want to, but I think having just that little buffer layer for roots would be good. Holly K said, can you talk a little bit more about bulbs naturalizing? Are there certain conditions and or varieties of tulips and daffodils that are more prone to naturalizing and coming back for more years? Yeah, and they'll usually indicate it on their tag or in the information about the bulbs. There are some species tulips, and I'm going to plant some here soon. There's like Lady Jane's. I'm putting some of those in. I can't remember any of the other names off the top of my head. There's smaller tulips, more like wild tulips that will naturalize. So it's just reading up a little bit on each of the varieties and deciding if that's what you want in the space that you have. In terms of like conditions climate wise, you just want to make sure that they're getting the correct cold period. Usually on daffodils and tulips, it's somewhere between like 14 and 16 weeks or 12 and 16 weeks, something like that. They need that cold in order to perform the best for most varieties. However, there is one variety of daff that I planted, the Avalanche, I think. And that one was good for more southern gardeners where it's more mild. They tend to do okay in that sort of situation. It's just doing a little bit of research on the varieties that you're interested in, really. Leandra said, do you go back to previous bulb planting videos to remember where you planted other bulbs? I would be lost on such a large piece of land. I don't even know if I watched it, I would be able to pinpoint exactly where I planted them. Like where all the Menton tulips are out in the entryway. Like I could watch the video where they are, but I don't think I could say like, oh, they're right here.
Yeah.
It's too big. I just don't worry about it. If there's something I want to plant in there, I'll go plant it. Sometimes I'll kick a bulb out and I just replant it. Occasionally I'll wreck a bulb and it's just I just know it might happen. It's the risk you take when you plant stuff willy-nilly out there like that. Chris said, I was thinking of interplanting my daffodils with my daylilies. I noticed that you planted yours around the daylilies. What are your thoughts on interplanting the daffs with the daylilies? Well, I think it's a great idea because I think they both have this similar foliage. So if you like that foliage texture in that area, then you get it more of the season, because your daffs will come up way before your daylilies will. You'll get to enjoy the blooms. And then as your daylilies are coming up and filling in, they'll kind of cover over the ratty looking foliage of the daffs. And once the daff foliage is done, you pull it out. Then you have your beautiful daylilies. I think it's a good idea. Melanie said, I always thought houseplants weren't supposed to get fertilized during winter or the non-growing season. What gives? It depends, I think, on the houseplant. There are, like in the succulent world, there are some that are dormant in the winter and some that are actively growing in the winter, like aeoniums. That's an odd one. I just keep mine on, I keep mine on a monthly houseplant fertilizing schedule. You
intend to keep them
I
on that?
intend to. I know I say that and then I kind of laugh at myself. I would love to say that I keep them on just a monthly, just a standard fertilizing schedule, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So I just, as often as I think about it, I do it. And I don't even worry about what time of year it is. Severine said, I have a question for you. Is it possible to still overwater plants even if the planter has drain holes? Yep, it sure is. Sometimes the consistency of the soil in your pot and the way the roots are growing in there, sometimes it can hold on to moisture, like in the interior. So even if you stick your finger in there, it can feel dry on the top, but if you pull it out and actually look up in there, it could be holding on to a soggy mess in the middle. It's happened to me before, and which is the most discouraging thing because you are finger testing the soil and you're like, thinking, I'm not overwatering this plant. This soil feels dry. But you don't really know what's going on up underneath there. So sometimes it's worth it to pop stuff out and really inspect the root system. But yeah, definitely possible. And that's it, you guys. That's it for this week's recap video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Have a great day and a great week, and we will see you in the next video.